That is a good point. Write that one down. That is a very good point. See, these are the things that we need to hear about, yes. So I think we should figure that out. And it might be that you want to do it, you want to preserve the claim, and that's a good one, how to deal with it. Do we do it where you get to appeal that one? Because you'd rather do all of them at once. So your appeal is preserved until all of them are final is probably it. But what you think we should put, do we have an address where people can submit comments to you, an email address?
Not yet, but we will, I'll talk with Angela as soon as those regulations are published, the middle of November. I think along with that should be a way
No,
for...
we need a place for somebody like, what's your name again?
Conrad.
We need a place for somebody like Conrad to say, I thought of something that I need to get you, because you're supposed to get public info. We need a place where people can send information between now and then. Do you have an idea of when?
Once the 45 days. Once it's public.
You're not going to have a place?
And it's going to do a public, when it's open for public comments.
I really don't like that answer. We need a...
Well, and I will say, in the meantime, anything that comes through your office is logged officially, and we keep all that data. So any question that's provided to a congressional office, we have it at our office in Santa Fe, and that's not going to be lost upon the public comment period.
Okay.
either.
Okay, so I have a very small stack. These are questions that need to be going. You're supposed to, FEMA is supposed to gather public input into the drafting of the regulations, not just after it's published for the input. You need to come up with an address, an email address where people can send their names. FEMA.gov, by info, Hermit's Peak info at FEMA.gov. That's not that hard. You have IT to do it. You need to do that. And once you do that, you need to send notice to everybody who was at this meeting that they have that. Because we have to get you input as you're drafting the regulation, not until they're final, so you can make them almost the best they can be on November 14th.
Bravo.
So, yeah, because that's a good point. And now that point, you don't need to tell that point again to read about it. So any issue that you raised here today, we've captured. They're taking notes, we're taking notes, it's captured. So now we're going to let them speak for a little bit, and then we will, then what we'll do is, there's so many of us, what we'll do is, for questions, in Vegas, we had people line up so that we knew who asked first and who asked second. How do you think we can do that, Commissioner?
Same way, your hand.
Same way?
Everybody knows, it's hard to see.
Yeah, we can't really move around. Yeah, we can't move around. So tell you what, we will just,
Let's go row by row.
Yeah.
oh, great idea. See, we'll go row by row. So any questions here, any questions there, any questions there? Okay, very
You're
good.
going too fast.
I'm going to fast. No. When we get to the questions, I was just practicing. I have to practice this stuff. You know, I don't know how to do this. Okay, FEMA.
Congresswoman, thank you very much for the presentation and the opportunity to be here. Again, my name is Jerry Stoller. I'm the Federal Coordinating Officer for the Presidential Declaration that was approved back in May for the wildfires, and then subsequently also addressed the flooding. The first thing I want to say is that I know each and every one of you right now are very frustrated. And you're angry. And you're angry at the federal government.
You're stressed.
I understand that. The people that work for me, Ben and Aisha, understand that. We have an opportunity now to try to get it right. So I'm not going to talk real long here this evening, because we're here really to listen to you as we begin this process of figuring out how we're going to make you whole. The programs that I'm responsible for, the Congresswoman talked about, I know it's nowhere near enough. And all of you are very frustrated, have been very frustrated in dealing with the process to get that assistance. I would just ask you to be patient and continue to be persistent, because some significant help is on the way. but we need your input on this in order to get it right. There are a couple of points from the Congresswoman's presentation that I want to emphasize. First, we do want to make this process simple and easy to use. And I know there are a lot of challenges here in northern New Mexico. So we really need to hear from you on what you think would make a good process simple and easy to use for this Assistance Act. Second thing I want to stress is that the initial draft of the regulations will be released mid-November. We will get your feedback, and I will have an answer, Congresswoman, I will have an answer to your staff tomorrow on where those comments can be sent.
Okay, thank you.
I will work on that this evening, get that tomorrow.
We'll post that on our social. Twitter, Facebook.
But it's important to remember that when those regulations come out, it's not going to be perfect. And it's important, and we're going to get those regulations out to the local jurisdictions, to all of you, so you can take a look at it and give us the feedback that we need to refine it and make it the way it needs to be, so that when we start to receive claims, we have a very good process in place that everybody understands and it is easy to use. Next thing I want to talk about is what you can do to help the claims process. No matter how simple or easy to use the process is, you're going to need to be prepared to talk with that navigator about the losses that you incurred. So any documentation that you have that can capture what those losses were is really going to make that claims process much easier. Whether that's, if you have your phone and you took video, if you have any kind of receipts, any documentation at all will just help that. And I know some of you have already been going through that, trying to apply for the FEMA programs and even those from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But that documentation, the more you have, the easier that claims journey is going to be for you. And the other point that I want to make that the Congresswoman mentioned towards the end is that, look, I know that we can't do this. I can't do this with just my staff. We have got to have state and local representation in this claims office, helping us understand the types of losses that you have incurred, and how do we go about deciding what a fair settlement should be. All right, and I am working very closely with Ms. Gladwell, stressing to her how important it is to have locals, people, some of you maybe even in this room, that is going to be part of the process and is going to help us make decisions that are fair and equitable for everyone who submits a claim. I just can't stress that enough. And the only other thing I want to point out to you, and again, I know, and this will be my last point, I know that all of you are frustrated and angry with the federal government. I'm going to just speak for my staff with FEMA, okay? Many of the people that work for me joined FEMA because they were impacted they were a survivor from a natural event, okay? Aisha is from Puerto Rico, okay? I think all of you know of everything that's happened in Puerto Rico recently and in years past. Ben is from Austin, Texas. Texas has 300 miles of coastline, and they've had some very serious hurricanes. Many of you remember Hurricane Harvey a little over 5 years ago. I'm very fortunate. I have not been affected by a disaster, and I come from Western Pennsylvania, grew up in Pittsburgh. But so again, I want to point out that we have a lot of people from all over the country coming here to New Mexico to help. But that's why I'm here tonight. I need to hear from you what the conditions are like here in northern New Mexico. I want to understand and appreciate your way of life, and I want to be able to communicate to my senior leaders so that as we set up this process, we are going to do what's best, what's fair and equitable for each and every one of you. But again, I need your help. We need your help. We can't do it by ourselves. Congresswoman, again, I want to thank you for your leadership in getting this legislation passed. By the way, what we've got here is truly historic. It's only happened one other time. It was in New Mexico, and it was about 15 years ago. Right? But this is an historic piece of legislation. And the fact that it got passed, even while other things are going on in the country, right? With Hurricane Ian rolling through Florida, this legislation still stayed on track because of the leadership of the Congresswoman. So, and ma'am, you've certainly given me quite a bit to follow up on, and I just want to assure you and your staff, it's been an absolute pleasure to work with, that we're going to do everything we can to get this thing going the way it should.
Okay, great. I just love the way you said yes, 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 and then no, if, but then yes. Okay, I want to make a couple of announcements of people that are here. Remember we talked about mitigation to help with the flooding and stuff like that. But right now there actually is funding available through a USDA program. And so if you don't already know I always get the name wrong.
Natural Resources Conservation Service.
I always get that letter mixed up. National
Resources
Conservation Service. And so tell them,
My name's Jason Martin. I'm the Assistant State Conservationist for Field Operations for the North area, but we usually shorten it to Area Conservationist just because it's easier to say and remember. First of all, I'm new to New Mexico. I came here right about the time that the fires were starting to ramp up, and I've gotten a chance to get out a little bit to some of the communities here. They've all been very welcoming and wonderful to work with, even through the frustration, even through the uncertainty and fear of everything that's going on in your community. And I really appreciate that. It's helped me adjust to the area a lot, and it's great to be here, working with each and every one of you.
so there are USDA programs specifically for mitigation that can be gotten through here, and now we have that they're going to be 100% paid for by the federal government. And so if you have those kinds of issues, find him afterwards, and you might be hearing some of that as we go along.
Absolutely.
Let's get to, we'll get to questions now, and we'll see if we can find, so you can write your name up here in a bit. But I also wanted to real quickly, there's going to be a USDA resource fair. Don't go into more detail, stand up. Now just start to repeat because we don't have much, but you can stand up. We now have, you might recognize him, but now he is the director of the
Rural Partners Network.
Yeah, World Partners Network is about, they're at USDA, and it's to help San Miguel, Mora, Colfax, and Taos County access the different programs that are available for people in our rural areas. And we want him and the Rural Partner Network to be thinking about how do we build back even better? How do we make sure that our communities truly rise from the ashes? And he is having a resource fair on Saturday, October 29th from 10 to 3 p.m. and they're passing these out. Okay.
Where is the resource fair?
Over there in the atrium.
Oh, okay.
So nice over here. I've never been to this high school before. Are there any questions in the first row?
Ya, bueno, más que una pregunta, quiero poner a disposición de FEMA La Voz de Mora, que es our local newspaper. We're going to print tomorrow afternoon. If you have the information where to send the comments, we can publish. If you let me know in the morning.
I'm sorry, wait, could you repeat that one more time, please, your question?
So it's not a question, it's an offer.
Okay.
It's the Voz de Mora, and they print once a week?
No, at month, but
Okay.
we're
Once a
going
month.
to print tomorrow.
Oh, they're gonna print one tomorrow, so if you could get her
Okay.
the address,
All right.
that she will put it there in the Voz de
Yeah,
Mora.
I want to make sure I get your contact information before you leave this evening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, muchísimas gracias, excelente idea, gracias para ponerlo. Y luego, there was one And then you could put where they find the other thing that might be good to print, which might be more than people want, but since you're printing, is I think there is a link that we can give for the bill itself.
Okay.
If people want to see the bill itself, and then this PowerPoint. And remember, the PowerPoint is a summary, it's not everything, but that way it's a summary. We can get that to them, and Jennifer will get that to you. You know Jennifer, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You,
Yes. A lot of us, well, maybe I should say a lot of us, I can only speak for myself, but I'm not on Facebook or anything like that, so a lot of times I don't have access to information, and I find out about it way after it's too late.
what is the way, this is a really good point, because not only do you not have access, but so many of the towers are down. And we have placed a call and are pushing why they haven't brought back temporary towers. It's dangerous not to have them there, so I know that's an issue. Tell me how you found out about this.
This one, I just happened to be talking to a fella, and he told me about it, and
Okay.
I asked him what he was talking about. So he sent me a thing that he had on his phone, a picture of the,
How did he send it to you?
on my phone, on my
On
cell
your
phone.
phone? Okay,
And I sent it out to several other people that had no idea.
okay. So we have to find a way to make sure we get that word out. And it sounds like the social network happened because he had it, you just didn't have it. We have everybody who signed up today, are we gonna be inputting them into our, if you've
Yes.
asked, if you've said, we have a newsletter we send out, which we're gonna be having some newsletters that focus just on Hermit's Peak. So if you sign up for that, we'll send that to you. So if you've checked that, we will send that to you. If you've checked that on the sign-up sheet, we
I
will,
think I did.
yeah, if you, so then you, but we'll do that. We'll be trying to send information out on our social, if you sign up for our newsletter. We got on the radio, so which radios, let us know which radios. We were on 2 radios to announce it, also in Colfax. So we are trying to find ways to announce it, but do you have an
I was
idea?
gonna suggest for people like him and probably a lot in here, if they put their mailing address, you send them a written notice and an email notice, because some people don't have email too.
Can you do that?
Is that possible? I mean, I know a lot of people up here, and even if they do have an email address, they can't get to it because of the technology, not being here. So mailing address and email address, I get it.
Let me take that back, that'll be part of my deliverable
Yeah, you can take
tomorrow.
that back, because normally they don't, what they'll do is publish it, and the requirements of federal governments are usually publish in newsletters, publish in the newspaper, those kinds of things, so he's gonna look at that.
Yeah.
What did people write on the sign-up sheet?
Some people put email, some people put regular address.
Okay, well, we'll at least have them, and then we'll see what we could do with it. But I think that that's an important point. Thank you for raising it.
I had a question about property value reduction. There are 2 flavors. One is for the individual. The other is for the county government, because their tax revenues are going to drop because
Exactly.
of property value reduction. Are you covering both of those?
Yes, and it's going to be difficult. So he asked about what happens is the reduction in property values. And what happens because property values fell to the county, because now they're not going to be able to, their mill levies and all of that are dependent on property values, right? And so there's 2 things. I think we need to cover both. What the Cerro Grande regulations provided was that if you sold your property and you couldn't get, like, let's say your property was worth $200,000, but because now of the fires, and not the house or anything, just the acreage, but now it's only, you could only get $100,000 for it, and you could show that, then if you sold it for less than what it was worth, then you'd get the difference. So it is intended to capture property values in that sense. We have had conversations with the county. We had a meeting a Monday ago about exactly that. And we're going to be working with the county on how do we cover those kinds of losses. There's a lot of complications for the governmental losses, and we are thinking about that. So good point to raise. Anything else on this first row? Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
We don't know if we're the
I
first
don't
row
know,
or the
I
last
haven't
row.
figured out if that's the front row again. Okay, does everybody think that's the front row? Okay, that's the front row. Okay, you, Roger Montoya, Representative Montoya, thanks for joining us here this evening.
First of all, Congresswoman, thank you for your diligence and advocacy in bringing this act forward. Incredible. My heart goes out. I do not live in Mora, but I represent these people, and thank you for that. My question is centered around the housing. Normally, when a community has a disaster of this level, there's temporary housing that comes in. Can you answer that question? And then proactively, we know that even if we had, say, RVs come in, there's not the infrastructure available. We only have space for about 10 in Mora County. We obviously have a lot of land. Could any of this provision in the Act or the USDA funding that Mr. Rivera now handles with the rural pathways help build the infrastructure? Would be good immediately and in the long term for a bunch of reasons, for tourism, etc. Sorry for the long, convoluted question.
No, that was an excellent question. So did everybody hear it? What about temporary housing now and the infrastructure we need for that?
Yeah. First of all, sir, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of constraints with the solutions I can bring in now, right, because of the lack of utilities. I believe the Act does have, it's designed to make each household whole. Okay, so again, in terms of whatever that individual situation is, they need to bring that as part of their claim. And then the navigator will work with the household and other experts that'll be on in the claims office to figure out what, in terms of affordable housing, can be done in northern New Mexico, right?
So I think so the issue is that the Hermit's Peak Act, like if your well was messed up and you need a new way, they'll cover drilling a new well because some of the wells got ruined with the floods, right?
Yeah.
But he's asking a FEMA question for the regular FEMA now. And can we pair anything from Hermit's Peak with the need now? And I'm not sure that we can, because the Hermit's Peak is intended for like individuals' losses, like it's intended for losses, where this is about how do we use resources that are available and think through them smartly so that the way we build infrastructure helps for the future, for future development. And I think that that's a really good network partner question to follow up on, and maybe not today. But you can ask, say what you can, so we can get back to others.
So sorry.
Just real quick.
I think it's a great question.
USDA wants nothing more than for people to move back into their homes, into their properties. Their house might have been burned down, but we know people want to come back to their own properties. USDA has a program that we will pay for the hookups for all the utilities into a FEMA trailer if a FEMA trailer is available to them. So we will pay for that.
So the question is, the FEMA trailers, normally in a disaster, they arrive. 20 years ago in Cerro Grande, they came rather quickly for that community. So I'm just wondering, I know it's hard to compare communities, but why are the people here waiting so long for those trailers?
We do have the trailers in New Mexico. We have been working with individual households on their eligibility, and we've also been working with USDA on partnering with them. Because there are some, the way the utilities here are going to be, the hookups are going to be very unique. Some of them will not have actual running water hooked up to the unit. We're going to look at either helping the household repair the well, or also looking at some options to possibly bring in a water bladder to provide water to the unit. Okay. So we are still working with USDA on some of these arrangements. In fact, we'll be meeting with the state this week on several of the properties to see if we can make and get these units installed on the private sites. In addition to that, There are some commercial parks. We have a few pads, I think it's between 10 and 15 pads at half a dozen or so commercial parks that we're hoping to have available, those pads available for households in the near future. But I don't have a date certain on that right now. But we're working through that. But the challenges here in northern New Mexico, as you know, are very, very significant. And with the solutions that I have available for residents in this part of the country, it just makes it very difficult to complete the installation.
My question is really to be a servant and an advocate. I want to help bring the solutions forward as well. So I'm at your service and we're going to get this done. Our people deserve the dignity of a home,
Yes, sir.
particularly now that this tragedy has struck so profoundly. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Mine piggybacks on his in that, how come FEMA, okay, from day one, when I applied, I asked about housing. Nobody knew a thing. Nobody knew a thing. Weeks go by, months go by. Now I'm finally getting a couple answers. And then they tell me that the trailer is available. It's like the clock starts when I get approved. Oh no, the clock started when the fire started. And I'm like, wait a minute, that was in April. We are, oh, look at me, end of October.
Right.
So why am I being dinged? Because you guys didn't get your program ready to go to help us out.
Yeah. Ma'am, if you'll spend just a few minutes with me when we're done here, I want to get your FEMA application number. I want to take a look at your case.
I'm looking for everyone. I mean,
This is
big question.
important, and so I think that if there are, this is really important, you have your computers here, you have access, that let's make sure that we have a line. Can I ask you guys to stay to answer questions? That's actually, well, then we have to ask the high school if they don't mind to stay longer, but at least getting the information, and then I want to make sure that the follow-up happens.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Yes. So, I've gone to many FEMA associates, and they do tell me, oh yeah, that was the fire disaster, and then you had a water disaster. And yet there's only one pool of funds that goes for both. Why, if I have had two different disasters, why do I only get one fund? The settlement is like under, what, 29,000. Why, if we have already gone through two of these, are we only getting allotted one $29,000 fund?
Again, I
You
want
max
to take a
us
look
out.
at your specific case, because the disaster, the incident scope of the disaster has expanded from wildfires to now include flooding, landslides, and mudslides as well. So,
Right, but one of those only covers one or the other. And I'm not talking about just my situation. So many over here. We got hit so hard with this, and so we're trying our best to try to get
yeah.
something from you guys. And then there's the water end of it, the flooding. And they're looped in together, and you're like, okay, just to
Yeah.
repair one of my things is all of that money.
Okay, so you're gonna follow up with her.
Right.
The issues around the flooding are really important, and the issues around the fact that, and this is where, like, I'm torn, right? All I can do is ask him to make sure he follows up with them, make sure you let us know if you're running into problems. Because the Hermit's Peak money is going to replace things, but people are facing mold in their buildings now. They're facing lots of problems that exist now that you all need help on now. And we really need to figure out what to do with the buildings that are getting flooding. And because it's raining so much, we've never had mold in New Mexico. We don't know how to deal with it, but it can be very dangerous to health. So the second, we'll go about 2 loads up, and then I'll do that side, and then do some more, and then that side. So the second.
Excuse me, before you go on, the sign-in sheet hasn't gotten, oh, there it goes. The people in the back need
There's
some.
still some people with questions here on this road.
Oh, yeah, this row?
Specifically this.
Okay, you?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes. I have questions, and the sheriff was nice enough to give me his question, so I have 3 total, if that's okay. The first question is,
That's nice enough, it's like.
will people be required to register for Stafford Act FEMA, old FEMA, to partake in the
No.
HPCC?
No, but if you were eligible to get something under the old FEMA, they do want you to do that. It is a separate registration for Hermit's Peak. So Hermit's Peak is its own registration, but if there was something that you could get from FEMA, they do want you to do that. Because like I said, if you can get $39,000 from FEMA because your house was destroyed, that saves us $39,000 from the Hermit's Peak.
So the best advice we can give right now is register for regular FEMA, because then the deadline might be gone by the time
Yes.
Hermit's Peak is ready to go.
Very good.
Okay,
Someone.
next question.
Excellent. Did everybody hear that? The advice is register for FEMA now if you've had loss, because that way if you get money from them, you're not gonna ever double dip. So if you had 100, I'm always using my 100,000, if you got 39,000 from FEMA, they'll just get deducted from the 100. You'll always only get 100, but we want you to register for FEMA. They will ask that question, did you get what you could? Did you file for insurance? Did you get what you could?
Just to expand on that, not only register for FEMA, but for some of the USDA programs as well, okay? What we want to try to do is make sure we maximize the Stafford Act programs and the USDA programs, and then we get into the, what the Fire Assistance Act can provide. So again, and I know I'm asking a lot, because all of you have probably had it up to here with FEMA and the USDA and our processes, but again, I understand.
Okay,
I'm just asking you to just be patient and persistent, and and my commitment again to you is to come to you. We have a DRC, I know we have a DRC open.
What's a DRC?
I'm sorry, a Disaster Recovery Center. How many of you have been to a Disaster Recovery Center? Okay, all right. Not as many hands as I would have hoped, but at least a few hands. We're working very closely with the state. If we need to open up more disaster recovery centers, we will do that. But we know that communication is a challenge. I've heard that loud and clear. And I personally, I think given this situation, dealing with each of you in person, one-on-one is going to be really important. And so, and that's why we need to get, we're going to be hiring, we need to bring more staff and get them out into these communities, into your community, to help you work through this.
Next question.
Next question. FEMA in the bill has an opportunity to appoint an independent claims manager, which could be a New Mexican and not a FEMA representative. There's a lot of mistrust with FEMA, and I understand the way the first regulation, the Stafford Act runs. I get it. But what is being done to appoint a New Mexican to be the independent claims manager so they can pronounce the word acequia and get us what we need?
No, and the director, Ms. Gladwell, is very well aware of that provision, and she's taking that under consideration. Okay, so that, and when that decision is made, I'm sure that'll also be communicated to you.
Last question. How do people not shortchange themselves? So will the navigators be providing appraisals, arborists, hydrologists, all the things so people can really have a good value of where they are right now, and they don't shortchange themselves of where they're going to be in 3 years as things start to fail?
No, as I said, there are a lot of activities that have been affected by this incident, and